He won't know the difference. He trusts me.
I thought it was just coffee, until I realized I was about to disappear.
The coffee smelled like vanilla. Megan always added vanilla. She said it reminded her of Mom. Soft, sweet, something that stayed in the air. But this time, it tasted like bitterness and metal. She smiled across the table like nothing was wrong. "Here, Dad," she said, sliding a manila folder over the lace runner. "Just some paperwork for safety. You know, in case something ever happens." I looked at the documents, and I realized I was about to disappear. Before we continue, I need you to do something. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone you loved, someone you raised or supported, please subscribe to this channel, like the video, and leave a comment below telling me where you're listening from. It helps more than you think, and someone out there might need this story too. My name is Alan McCrae. I'm 63 years old, and I live just outside Reno, Nevada, in a sun-baked neighborhood where the streets still crack from the summer heat. You can see the edge of Peavine Peak from my back porch. On cold mornings, it turns silver blue under the frost. That's when I sit out there, wrap my hands around a chipped Navy mug, and try to remind myself that I still matter. But that morning, at my own kitchen table, I felt like I'd already been erased. The folders sat there between us. Brown, plain, innocent, but my gut twisted, like a fist clenching somewhere deep under the ribs. I didn't touch it. Megan, of course, noticed. "You don't trust me?" she asked. She said it softly, but there was a practiced lift at the end of her voice. That little curl like a puppy's tail. Harmless, sweet, just enough guilt to trap you before you can name what you're feeling. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I took another sip of the coffee. It was bitter, not poisoned. I don't mean it like that. But it just tasted like control. Like someone had changed the recipe of your life without asking if you were done with the old one. The bitterness came from more than beans. It was the kind of taste you get when someone adds sweetener after you've already said you like it black. She'd been adding more than vanilla lately. 2 weeks before, she'd asked for my bank login. "It's just for emergencies," she'd said, leaning in with that calm, daughterly tone. "What if you get locked out?" I told her no. A few days later, Wells Fargo called. A young man on the other end, voice polite but tight, asked if I'd recently added a joint name to one of my retirement accounts. I hadn't. My chest went cold. I called Megan immediately. She denied everything. "That's so weird, Dad. Maybe it's just a glitch? Let me call them for you?" I told her I'd handle it myself. The silence that followed was heavy enough to feel across the line. Then she acted offended, like I'd just accused her of stealing from the church collection plate. And now here we were. Coffee, vanilla, paperwork. "What's in the folder?" I asked. Finally, my voice lower than I intended. "Just a simple power of attorney form," she said, like she was suggesting a new brand of detergent. "It's smart to have one. You know, for if you ever get hospitalized or confused." Confused. That word landed like a slap. No. More than a slap, like a quiet verdict being stamped somewhere permanent. I stared at her. "You think I'm confused?" She gave a quick laugh. No, of course not. But Dad, you forgot your appointment last Thursday. And last month, you left the garage door open all night. That happens. I'm just trying to help. You're not 30 anymore. Neither are you, I wanted to say. You're 34. Old enough to know what a lie looks like. Old enough to polish one up and make it sparkle like a gift. I pushed the folder back toward her. "I'm not signing anything today." Megan stiffened just enough for me to notice, but she didn't argue. She smiled, thin and careful. "That's okay. Take your time. Just don't wait too long." Then she stood, picked up her purse, and leaned over to kiss my forehead. "Love you, Dad." And then she was gone. The mug stayed in my hand a while longer, but the warmth had already left. It's strange how a kitchen can feel different after one conversation. The same light poured across the counter. The same hum came from the refrigerator, but the air felt thinner, colder, like something essential had been taken out of the room. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the tone in her voice, the way she said, confused, like she was planting the seed for something, like she wanted me to believe it too. I tossed and turned until the ceiling felt like it was leaning down to listen. Finally, I swung my legs out of bed. My feet touched the carpet, cool, rough. The house had that late-night stillness where every sound feels louder than it should. The click of the door frame, the soft creak of the hallway floor, the faint buzz of the fridge far away. I walked barefoot to the den. The den smelled like old wood, Windex, and the faintest trace of the cologne I used to wear when I still worked service calls, when I was the man people trusted to fix things. I pulled open the cabinet drawer, old tax folders, manuals for appliances I no longer owned. Underneath them, wrapped in a rubber band that had gone brittle with time, was my will. Still intact, still notarized, still untouched by Megan, for now. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, like a game of chess where the other player just moved a piece you didn't know existed. The next morning I called Mrs. Flores. She lives across the street, used to babysit Megan when she was little, back when Megan's biggest rebellion was refusing to eat peas. We hadn't talked in a while, but if something was happening in the neighborhood, especially to me, Mrs. Flores might have seen it. Her voice was soft, almost embarrassed. "Alan," she said, "I probably shouldn't be saying this, but a man came by your house last Thursday. Said he was a buyer, asked about the siding, said your daughter told him the place might go on the market soon." I felt my pulse in my teeth. "I'm not selling," I said. The words barely formed. "I know that," she said, "but are you okay?" I thanked her and hung up. My hands were shaking when I set the phone down. I walked straight to the garage. The light flicked on with a buzz, cutting a pale stripe across the boxes stacked along the wall. I opened the metal file cabinet. Second drawer, third folder, deed. Still there. In my name only, but the cold sweat ran anyway. Because I knew Megan. Not the public Megan. Not the one who baked cupcakes for charity auctions, who posed with shelter dogs and smiled for filtered Instagram photos. I knew the other Megan. The Megan who had once screamed at her dying mother because she wasn't ready to deal with grief. The Megan who never forgot an insult, but always forgot a favor. The Megan who believed in two things above all else: control and ownership. And now she was circling both. Later that week, I drove down to the county clerk's office, just to check, just to quiet the gnawing thing in my chest that kept waking me up at 3 a.m. The building smelled like paper and dust and lemon cleaner. A woman at the desk with glasses perched low on her nose clicked through the records while I stood there, pretending to read the notices taped to the wall. "Nothing new filed in your name," she said finally. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. But then she added something, almost as an afterthought. "There was an inquiry, though. About 2 weeks ago, someone asked about quitclaim deed procedures. Didn't file anything, just they'd ask questions." I nodded slowly. "Was it my daughter?" She looked up, kind eyes but rules behind them. "I'm not allowed to say names, sir, but maybe check your internet routers." It took me a second to understand. Then it landed like a stone. That night, I sat in the kitchen and stared at the smart speaker Megan had given me last Christmas. She'd said it was for music, reminders, all that stuff. I'd never used it much. Still, it blinked patiently from the counter, listening, waiting, always listening, always blinking, just like her. I reached over and unplugged it. The light died with a soft click, and the silence felt heavier, but safer. Then I made a fresh pot of coffee. Black. No vanilla, no sweetener, just bitter and clean, like truth. I stood by the window, watching the night stretch beyond my backyard. The desert sky over Reno has a way of swallowing sound. Even the occasional hum of a late car passing felt far away. Somewhere beyond the edge of the mountains, I felt something shift again. This wasn't about aging. This wasn't about safety. This was a slow erasure, and I was done being erased. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I got dressed like I used to when I was still working. Tucked in shirt, steel toe boots, wallet clipped to my belt. Not because I had anywhere to be, but because I needed to feel like a man again, like someone who hadn't just been handed a quiet funeral over coffee. When you've spent decades waking up at 5, pulling on boots, stepping into the world with a purpose, it's strange how quickly retirement can make you feel invisible. That morning, I wasn't going to feel invisible. Not to Megan, not to anyone. Megan hadn't called since the folder incident, but I wasn't waiting. I drove down to my credit union, the small one on South Virginia Street, where the asphalt parking lot always smells like sun-baked rubber, and the tellers still remember your name. The bell above the door jingled as I stepped inside. Cool air, faintly lemon-scented, rushed against my face. For a second it felt like stepping back into a world where people trusted one another. Miss Tanya was behind the counter. She'd been there forever. Dark hair streaked silver, glasses on a chain, the same warm smile she'd given Megan when she was a pigtail-wearing kid with a dollar bill to deposit. "Morning, Mr. McCrae," she said. "Haven't seen you in a bit." "Morning, Tanya. I need to see the last 60 days of transactions." She gave me a curious look, but didn't ask. Just tapped at her keyboard, the soft clatter echoing through the quiet lobby. A printer hummed somewhere in back. "You okay, Mr. McCrae?" she asked gently as she handed me the warm stack of paper. "I will be," I said, but as soon as I looked at the printout, my gut turned. Rows of numbers. Familiar payments, utilities, groceries, gas. But there it was, a $6,300 transfer out of my secondary savings, labeled AC External Trust Adj. I'd never authorized it. Another one, $1,050, same code. And a third, $385.99 to a name I didn't recognize. I circled the dates with the pen she'd given me, my hand shaking slightly. "Can you tell me where these went?" Tanya bit her lip. "That second one, it went to a brokerage account. New one, added just a month ago." I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "Whose name is on it?" She glanced around, lowered her own. "I'm not supposed to say, but it starts with M, and it's not McCrae." I didn't need more than that. My throat tightened. I slid the papers back into the envelope she'd given me and forced a nod. "Thanks, Tanya." Her eyes softened. "You take care now." "I will," I said again, though it felt less true the second time. That night, the garage became my war room. I pulled down dusty boxes, lids squealing against old cardboard, pay stubs, W-2s, utility bills dating back a decade. My wife used to tease me for saving everything. "Alan, someday these papers are going to need their own house." But tonight, I was grateful for every yellowing envelope and rubber-banded bundle. Because when you're being erased, paper is armor. I finally found the one I was looking for, a thick manila folder labeled in my wife's handwriting, "House paid off, final notice." Inside was the Wells Fargo mortgage release, signed and dated 5 years ago. The memory hit like a warm wind. The day we'd burned the last payment stub on the grill, laughing in the dusk, the day I'd felt free. Now someone was trying to sell that freedom back to me disguised as trust. A few days passed. Then Megan called. Her voice was light, cheerful, like we'd just chatted yesterday. "Hey, Dad, you busy Thursday? I was thinking we could go over a few things, maybe head to that Thai place you like. You know, just a little check-in." I let the pause hang. "Are we doing check-ins now?" She laughed, high, breezy. "You know what I mean." "No," I said flatly. "I don't." Silence. Just long enough to feel her shift gears. Then she pivoted fast, like someone changing lanes without a signal. "Look, I know the POA stuff caught you off guard, but I'm just trying to make sure things are organized. For you. I'm not doing anything shady. You've always been the one who's big on paperwork." That last line landed wrong. Megan had never cared about paperwork, until paperwork meant power. I could almost hear the smile she put on while saying it. I agreed to lunch anyway, because I needed to see her face, needed to look into her eyes and know what game she thought she was playing. We met at Siam Lotus, a little Thai place tucked behind a Shell station, the kind of spot you wouldn't find unless you knew it. I parked beneath the rattle of an old neon sign and stepped inside. The air smelled of lemongrass and frying garlic, warm and comforting, a place where normal fathers and daughters probably laughed over noodles. She was already there, polished, perfect hair swept back, makeup subtle but calculated, blouse and blazer in muted tones, corporate camouflage. "Dad," she said brightly, standing just enough to air kiss my cheek. "You look nice." "So do you," I said, and sat. We made small talk for a while. Pad Thai, her latest real estate listing, chatter about the housing market. I let her talk. I watched her hands, her eyes, the way she stirred her iced tea without really drinking it. Then she dropped it. "So I talked to a guy at the county office," she said casually, dabbing her mouth with a napkin. "He said if we start the paperwork now, we can get the deed transferred within 60 days. That way we can avoid probate entirely when the time comes." I blinked. "When what time comes?" "You know what I mean." I put my fork down. "No." "Say it." "When I die?" She smiled too quickly. "Dad, don't be dramatic." And in that instant I saw it, the flicker behind her eyes, the tiny impatient sigh she swallowed. The mask slipped for half a second, and there she was, the Megan I knew, tired of waiting. After lunch, I didn't go home. I drove out past the edges of Reno, toward Verde, where the foothills roll like dark green waves and the cell signal turns patchy. I pulled over at a rest stop, engine ticking as it cooled, sat staring at the wide Nevada sky, the mountains layered in shades of blue and gray. That's when I remembered. Back in January, Megan had gifted me a smart assistant hub. Sleek little puck, glowing ring of light, could control lights, thermostats, speakers. She'd set it up herself, breezing through menus I barely understood. "Modern convenience," she'd said. I hadn't used it once, but I'd never unplugged it either. Suddenly, a thought took shape. When I got home, I went straight to the entertainment stand, rummaged through the side drawer until my fingers hit smooth plastic. The puck sat there, tiny LED pulsing a soft, patient blue. I sat down, opened the companion app on my phone, the one she'd installed and half explained before waving it off. I started poking through menus, half guessing, half praying I didn't accidentally order a pallet of cat food. Then I found it. Voice history, clips, recordings, snippets of sound stored quietly in the cloud. Most were nothing, static, misfires, me mumbling, "Play the radio," months ago. But one caught my eye. Thursday evening, 2 weeks ago, the exact night Mrs. Flores had seen a stranger. I tapped, and there it was, Megan's voice, low, crisp, too confident. "Okay, he still thinks it's just for music. When he's half asleep, I'll put the POA in front of him. I'll tell him it's just a medical release. He won't know the difference." A man's voice laughing, unfamiliar. "What if he reads it?" "He won't. He trusts me." My hand trembled so hard I nearly dropped the phone. The clip was short, barely 20 seconds. But it was enough. I downloaded it, backed it up to my computer, then to a thumb drive. Armor. Something inside me shifted then. Quiet, but final. This wasn't just betrayal, it was theft in slow motion, and I was done standing still for it. The next day, I drove to First County Legal Aid, a low beige office wedged between a payday loan shop and a strip mall dentist. They offer free consultations for seniors. I'd always prided myself on handling my own paperwork, but pride doesn't stop a thief. I walked in with my folder, the printouts, the transfer notices, the voice clip on a drive, a copy of the POA Megan had tried to slip under my hand. The paralegal, a young guy named Paul with tired eyes and rolled up sleeves, scanned the pages. Halfway through, he stopped. This is serious," he said slowly. "If you hadn't caught this, she could have transferred your assets, sold your house, Changed your insurance beneficiaries. She tried, I said. He nodded, already typing fast. Let's get you a case file started. We'll lock down your accounts, file a protective statement on the deed, and... He exhaled. Mr. McCrae, you did the right thing coming in. For the first time in days, my spine straightened. That night, Megan called again. Hey, Dad, I saw there was a notice on your door. Something from the city? You okay? I said nothing. She kept talking, filling the silence like she always did when nervous. Listen, I know things got tense, but I really think you're blowing this out of proportion. I'm just trying to help. You've always been so stubborn. Stop, I said. The word came out harder than I expected. She froze. Even through the phone, I could feel it. I heard what you said, I told her, to whoever that man was, about the paperwork, about me being half asleep. Long pause. I could almost hear gears turning, plans rearranging. Then her voice shifted. Cold now, calculated. Dad, if you're going to start recording me, I didn't record you. The hub did. Another pause, shorter this time. You don't even know what you're talking about. I know enough. And then came the tears. Or what sounded like tears. Real? Maybe. But I'd seen Megan cry over parking tickets. I'd seen her summon sorrow like an actress stepping into a role. It no longer moved me. I let the silence stretch. Then I hung up. The next morning, a white envelope sat in my mailbox. HOA letterhead. Inside, a formal complaint. Someone had filed anonymously, claiming my house was in disrepair, that I was unfit to manage property alone. They'd attached photos, angles only someone who'd been inside my yard could have. Photos from last year, the week after my hip surgery when the lawn went wild and the porch bulb burned out. Only one person had taken those pictures. Megan. I brought the letter straight to Paul at Legal Aid. He raised an eyebrow, whistled low. This is retaliation, he said, and it's going to help us. Shows intent, shows a pattern. He added it to the file with careful, almost reverent precision, like a chess player moving a decisive piece. By the weekend, I had a new ritual. A small black notebook lived on my kitchen table. Every call logged, every visit documented. Dates, times, what was said. I had neighbors sign pages if they witnessed something. Tanya at the credit union initialed the transfer printouts. Even the pharmacy printed a wellness check, doctor's signature, official seal, stating I was fully alert, sound in judgment and memory. It felt humiliating at first, like proving I existed, but it also felt like armor, heavy but necessary, because people who want to erase you count on silence, on shame, on you not keeping records. I wasn't going to make it easy. Then came the final piece. One night, long after the street lamps flickered on, I opened my laptop and typed Megan's name. Her real estate profile came up instantly. Sleek headshot, glowing reviews, rows of homes with sold banners. I clicked through, jaw tight. And there it was. A new listing draft. Address hidden, but the specs were unmistakable. Square footage, garage count, lot description, even the sunset views toward Peavine Peak. It was my house. Verbatim. She'd already started the process, all without my consent. She showed up unannounced 3 days later. I was trimming the hedge out front, the sun high above Peavine Peak, when her car rolled into the driveway like it still belonged there. Glossy black paint, fresh wax, sunlight gliding over the hood. The same car I'd co-signed for 4 years ago, back when I still believed helping her was safe. Megan stepped out in heels, holding a folder again. Same one as before. Maybe she thought repetition made it legal. Hi, Dad, she said too brightly. Can we talk? I clicked off the trimmer, wiped my palms on my jeans, and leaned against the handle. Talk then. She hesitated, glancing toward the porch, probably hoping for an invitation inside. Air conditioning, safety, the upper hand. None came. The sidewalk would do. She opened the folder, lips already rehearsing the same song. I think we got off on the wrong foot, she began, gentle and coaxing. I brought an updated version of the paperwork. It's just a precaution. I even added a clause that limits its scope. I didn't say a word. She shifted tactics, voice softening to a nostalgia-laced pitch. You've always said we're a family of builders, right? I'm just trying to build a safety net. I looked at her then, really looked. She was good, smooth. Her voice was sugar on glass. But I saw it now, the tiny tremor in her jaw, the strain behind her eyes, the performance slipping. Where'd the 6,300 go, Megan? I asked quietly. Her mouth twitched. Just a fraction. What? From the credit union. February 14th. Trust Adji. Where'd it go? I have no idea what you're talking about. I stepped closer, slow enough to make the air change between us. And the ACH payment to your brokerage account? The same account tied to the house draft listing I found on your website? For a moment, her face dropped, just enough to show the truth. You went through my business account? She snapped. No, I said. It was public, just like the voice clip the Smart Hub recorded. That one landed. She froze, stunned, then angry. You invaded my privacy, I laughed. Short, bitter, gravel in my throat. You tried to sell my house. She stared at me for a heartbeat. Then the mask slid off completely. No more wounded daughter, no more sugar, just calculation. You're making this harder than it has to be, she said. The words cut deeper than a slap. Not because they were cruel, but because of how casually she said them, like I was an obstacle in a spreadsheet, a box to check before payout. You really think I'm slipping, don't you? I asked. She tilted her head, slightly, studied me. I think you're tired, alone. You've stopped looking forward. I drew a long, steady breath, looked past her to the garden, to the porch where my wife's wind chimes still hung, glass petals catching the sun, whispering in the breeze. My mother would be ashamed of you, I said. That got her. Her eyes hardened, quick as a shutter snap. She spun on her heel and strode to her car. The tires shrieked as she reversed out. She didn't even say goodbye. I stood there a long while, trimmer cooling in my hands, the hedge half finished and silent. When I finally went inside, I headed straight to the cabinet under the sink. That's where I kept the old voice recorder I used to bring on job sites. Nickel-sized buttons, dent in the casing, still with batteries after all these years. I thumbed it on, heard the tiny click, and tested the mic. Then I hit record. This time, I would be the one collecting evidence. Later that night, I sat in the living room with the recorder on the coffee table, the red light glowing like a small heart. I spoke steadily into the quiet house, narrating every detail, every incident, every suspicion. I spoke dates, names, times. It felt like writing my own will aloud, but into the air instead of paper, just in case. I described the folders in my filing cabinet, page numbers, envelope labels. I said the names on the mail piled near the door. I read the digital timestamps from my phone and laptop screen, so a future listener would know I was alert and deliberate. And I kept hearing her words echo. You've stopped looking forward. What she really meant was, you've become easier to erase. The next day I called the county recorder's office. My voice was calm, but my hand trembled slightly as I gave the parcel number. Asked for a records pull. Still clear, the clerk said after a pause. No changes. No new filings. I exhaled. Then she added almost casually, There's a note here. Someone filed an informal inquiry about a transfer under duress clause. Usually that happens when someone's trying to preempt a challenge. My stomach tightened. When was that inquiry? I asked. Last week. I thanked her and hung up. Transfer under duress. She was building a legal case, quietly, patiently, making it look as if I were slipping, so that when she finally filed, no one would blink. I walked to the hallway mirror, looked myself square in the eyes. For a long moment, I just studied the man staring back. Crow's feet, gray stubble, skin weathered from decades of Nevada sun. A man who'd built houses and fixed strangers' furnaces. A man still here. Then I said aloud, slow and deliberate, Not today. That afternoon, I gathered every document I had: printouts, account statements, mortgage release, legal notes, the transcription from the Smart Hub, spread them across the kitchen table like cards before a decisive game. My hands stopped shaking. They moved with purpose. Now. I filled 3 thick envelopes, addressed them in block letters, and drove to the post office. The smell of paper and glue filled the small space as I stood in line, the clerk raising an eyebrow at the weight of the packets. One went certified to the Nevada Real Estate Commission, Megan's license number highlighted next to screenshots of the forged listing and the transcript of her plan. One to her brokerage office, with a timeline of suspicious transfers and the voice clip summary. And one, this one felt personal, to the church committee where she volunteered, the place she wore her halo. My letter was calm, factual, but clear. My daughter had tried to manipulate me into signing over my property while half asleep. I didn't need every recipient to act. I just needed them to look. By Monday, the ripples came back. The brokerage sent an automatic email. Your claim has been logged for review. The Real Estate Commission assigned an official case number, and the church, Judith, one of the board members, wrote a personal reply. Warm, apologetic, shaken. She said she was deeply sorry and that the matter would be brought before the board. That one hit unexpectedly hard. My wife had sung in that choir. For years, Megan basked in that borrowed halo. Perfect daughter, helping hand. Seeing that halo crack felt like the first sunlight after weeks of storm. That evening, the phone rang. This time, no sugar, no cheer. Her voice was cold steel. "You're ruining everything," Megan said. I let the silence hang. "You know they won't believe you," she pressed. "They'll say you're confused. You're old, Dad. You're—" "Stop," I said. It landed like a door slam. She went still. "I heard what you said," I told her, to whoever that man was, about the paperwork, about me being half asleep. For a moment, there was nothing but her breathing. Then a shift. Hard. Defensive. "Dad, if you're going to start recording me—" "I didn't record you. The hub did." Another pause. Shorter. Colder. "You don't even know what you're talking about." "I know enough." Then came the crying. Sudden, shaky. Maybe real. Maybe performance. I'd seen Megan summon tears before. Parking tickets. Late fees. Bad dates. They didn't move me anymore. I let the silence stretch, solid and heavy. Then I ended the call. The next morning, a white envelope waited in my mailbox, crisp and official. HOA letterhead glaring from the corner. Inside, a formal complaint. Someone claimed my house was in disrepair, that I was unfit to manage property alone. Attached photos, angles only someone who'd been here could capture. Old pictures from the week after my hip surgery, when the lawn had gone wild and the porch light had burned out. Only one person had those. Megan. I drove straight to Paul at Legal Aid and slid the packet across his desk. He read it, brows rising, a slow exhale leaving his chest. "This is retaliation," he said, "and it's going to help us. Shows intent, shows a pattern." He added it to the thickening case file with careful precision, like laying another stone in a strong wall. By the weekend, I'd built myself a fortress of record. A black notebook sat open on my kitchen table. Every call logged, every visit described with date and time. Neighbors initialed pages when they witnessed something. Tanya at the credit union signed the transaction copies. Even my doctor printed a wellness check, cognitive screen, physical exam, signed and sealed, clear, stable, aware. It was humbling, strange, proving my own competence on paper, but it felt like armor, heavy, yes, but protective. People who want to erase you count on silence, on shame, on your refusal to write things down. I wasn't giving her that. Then came the final piece. Late one night, with only the hum of the fridge for company, I opened my laptop and typed Megan's name. Her real estate profile popped up. Polished headshot, glowing reviews, rows of sold homes. I clicked, and there it was. A brand new listing draft, address hidden, but everything else, square footage, garage count, lot size, sunset views toward Peavine Peak, matched my house exactly. She'd already started, already moving forward as if I were gone. But I was still here, and I was ready. It was a Wednesday. Gray sky, soft drizzle. Reno had that muted hush it gets when rain touches dust for the first time in weeks. The kind of weather that makes tire noise echo longer, makes the city feel like it's holding its breath. I stood in front of my mirror that morning, buttoning a shirt I hadn't worn in years. Navy blue, pressed the night before until the fabric creaked. Navy slacks, polished loafers, my wedding band still on. I wasn't dressing for court. I was dressing for war. Quiet, legal, bloodless war. The drive downtown was slow, wipers sweeping across misted glass, tires hissing on damp asphalt. I parked in the public lot across from the courthouse, the smell of wet pavement and distant exhaust hanging in the air. For a long moment, I sat behind the wheel, with both hands on the steering column, breathing steady. Inside, the courthouse smelled like cold paper and old floor wax. Polished halls hummed with muffled footsteps and low voices. A bailiff with a kind but unreadable face checked my papers, nodded, and pointed me toward a small family courtroom on the third floor. I climbed the stairs deliberately, one slow step at a time. Megan was already inside. She sat at the petitioner's table beside a private attorney in a navy suit that probably cost more than my entire car. She looked calm, professional, poised, a faint smile on her lips, the same one that used to mean warmth, home, safety. Now it looked like a snake coiled behind lipstick. She didn't wave, just met my eyes for a heartbeat and turned back to whisper to her lawyer. I took my seat at the opposite table, placed my briefcase on the floor, straightened my papers. The room was small, wood-paneled walls, a single row of benches for the public. Rain tapped against the tall window behind the judge's bench. The judge entered, a woman with silver hair pulled into a low bun, robe neat and simple. She called the room to order with quiet authority. Megan's attorney spoke first. He was smooth, practiced. His voice held that soft cadence lawyers use when they're selling concern. He talked about deterioration, confusion, safety risk. He spoke of me as if I were not there, like I was a file instead of a man. He referenced their petition, the one claiming I was demonstrating early-stage cognitive instability and an inability to manage personal affairs. He held up a packet thick with papers, probably full of anecdotes and slanted notes. He told the judge my recent erratic decisions were jeopardizing both myself and my estate. And then he said it. We believe Mr. McCrae's behavior puts both himself and his assets at risk. We respectfully ask the court to assign temporary guardianship to his daughter, Megan McCrae, until a formal assessment can be conducted. The words felt like someone slowly erasing me, letter by letter. The judge nodded slowly, then looked at me. Mr. McCrae, do you have a response? I stood. My hands stayed calm at my sides. My voice didn't shake. Yes, Your Honor, I do. I reached down, unclasped my briefcase, and pulled out the thick folder Paul and I had assembled. Weeks of work, sleepless nights, and careful preparation. I handed a copy to the bailiff, who passed it to the bench. The judge began flipping through the pages, her brow faintly furrowing. First, I said evenly, I'd like to present a notarized wellness clearance from Dr. Ellen Fisk at Silver State Health. Exam conducted 3 weeks ago. No signs of cognitive decline, confusion, or memory impairment. The judge paused, scanning the document, nodded once. Second, I continued, you'll find a series of financial transaction logs showing unauthorized activity from my retirement and savings accounts, transfers I never approved. Each was traced to accounts linked to my daughter. Megan shifted in her chair. Her attorney glanced at her, quick and sharp. Third, I said, my voice steady but cold, is a transcript and digital audio file, time-stamped and extracted from a smart assistant device in my home, wherein Ms. McCrae is heard instructing an unidentified man on how to deceive me into signing over power of attorney by exploiting fatigue. The room went still. Even the judge stopped reading for a moment, eyes rising to meet mine. I went on. Following that clip is another, recorded less than a week later, where she discusses listing my house without my knowledge. That listing was active in draft mode on her professional real estate profile as recently as last month. I looked at Megan. She stared straight ahead, jaw tight, not meeting my eyes. Fourth, I said, is a letter from my HOA, showing a malicious complaint submitted anonymously, photos clearly taken during my post-surgery recovery. I have testimony from my neighbor verifying no such issues existed before or after that week. Pages turned. The judge's eyes lingered. Finally, the judge looked up. Mr. McCrae, are you requesting a dismissal of the guardianship petition? No, Your Honor, I said, voice low but clear. I'm requesting a permanent injunction against my daughter. I'm requesting full revocation of any power of attorney drafts. And I'm asking the court to recognize an attempt at financial fraud, reputational defamation, and the willful weaponization of family law to seize assets under false pretenses. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was charged, humming. The judge leaned back slightly, gaze steady. Ms. McCrae, she said at last, voice calm but edged, do you or your counsel dispute the evidence presented here? Megan's attorney stood slowly, leaned toward her, whispered something. She stared at the table for a long beat. Her shoulders rose and fell. Finally, he faced the judge. No, Your Honor, he said quietly. We'll withdraw the petition. The judge nodded once. Petition denied, she said firmly. Injunction granted. Any further legal attempts to manage or interfere with Mr. McCrae's estate will require direct court approval. This court will schedule a follow-up to review potential charges of misconduct and fraudulent filing. Then she lifted the gavel and brought it down with a single echoing strike. And just like that, the curtain dropped. Megan stood quickly, gathered her purse with a stiff, jerking motion. She didn't look at me on her way out, just a brief flick of cold, hollow eyes before she turned and pushed through the courtroom doors. I didn't say a word, just stood still and watched her leave. Outside, the rain had stopped. A break in the gray let thin sunlight spill across the courthouse steps, warming the damp stone. People hurried by with umbrellas folded under their arms. Life kept moving. I stayed there a moment longer, feeling the quiet return to my chest. I didn't drive straight home. Instead, I stopped by the post office, again. The smell of ink and cardboard felt oddly comforting now. I sent one more certified packet. Final round. This one went to Megan's brokerage. Inside was the updated case file. Court ruling, evidence log, audio transcripts, property listing screenshots, withdrawal notices. Everything tied in one neat, undeniable bow. By Friday, her polished headshot disappeared from the agency website. By Monday, a public notice appeared on the state's real estate license portal. Suspension pending review. I printed that page and taped it to the inside of my kitchen cabinet. Not out of triumph, not out of spite, out of proof. Because when someone tries to erase you, you don't just fight to stay visible, you fight to be undeniable. 2 weeks passed, no calls, no texts, not a single knock at the door. But word travels in small towns, and Reno isn't as big as it looks. Church friends whispered updates. Neighbors mentioned things in passing. Megan was laying low, saying I'd been going through a tough time, spinning it as a misunderstanding. I didn't respond to any of it. I didn't need to. The paperwork, the rulings, the truth, they spoke louder than her story ever could. One quiet afternoon, I stepped into the backyard. The drizzle was long gone, the sky clean and pale. The winter chill was lifting. I could smell damp soil waking under the sun. Tiny green shoots pushed through the dirt in the raised beds, where my wife once grew herbs. The wind chime on the porch moved softly. glass pedals clinking in a tune only she would have recognized. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the small black voice recorder, the one that had become my shield. I pressed record one last time. "My name is Alan McCrae," I said, voice steady. 63 years old, mentally sound, fully alert, and no longer confused. I clicked it off, slipped it into the shoebox where all the other proof lived: audio, notes, documents, certified mail receipts. Then I walked back inside, filled the kettle, and made a fresh pot of coffee. Black, strong, just how I like it. No vanilla, no sweetener, no lies. I didn't hear from Megan for almost 2 months after the hearing. Not a word, not a text, not an email, not even one of those cryptic social media posts she used to send out like fishing lines, half poems about betrayal and family wounds. She vanished, and strangely, I didn't miss her. What I missed, if anything, was the daughter I thought I raised. The kid who used to sit on the tailgate of my truck, swinging her legs and handing me socket wrenches while I fixed the water heater in the garage. The one who made macaroni drawings of our house. The one who cried when her mom passed and curled up in my lap for a week straight. Silent, except for the small hiccups of grief. But that version of Megan hadn't been around in years. Maybe she never really existed. Maybe I just wanted her to. I kept thinking about something the judge said just before she closed the file that day. "You're more prepared than most people twice your age." At the time, I just nodded, but those words dug deep and stayed. Prepared. That's what this whole thing had been about. I'd spent my life building houses, savings, a family, a future. I thought building would keep me safe. But you can spend your life giving everything to someone, money, time, love, and still end up the villain in their version of the story. Still end up as an obstacle they feel they have to move. You can't control who rewrites your name, but you can control how deep your signature goes. And mine was carved into stone. Spring came, early that year. The last frost hit in early March. By mid-month, the earth softened. I was out in the garden, knees in the dirt, pulling weeds and making room for new things. The smell of wet soil and budding sage filled the air. Cold wind gave way to sunlight, warm enough to touch the back of my neck. I replaced the wind chime on the porch, the one my wife loved. The old one had dulled to silence. I built a new one from keys. Each key carried a story. The first house we ever owned. The locker I used for 30 years at the plant. The tiny brass one that once unlocked Megan's jewelry box. Now they all hung together, tinkling and chiming, singing to the breeze, not mourning the past, marking it, claiming it. I started walking again, too. Long, slow 3-mile loops, sometimes to the diner where Janine still pours coffee like she's painting a picture, sometimes just around the block, nodding at dogs and gardens and the scent of barbecue smoke drifting from someone's backyard. Neighbors waved. Some stopped to chat longer than usual. Their smiles had changed. There was respect now, quiet, unspoken, but real. I guess the story had made the rounds. At church, no one asked for details. They didn't need to. They patted my shoulder a little longer. They slid extra casserole onto my plate at potlucks. Someone asked if I'd help with the summer fundraiser, said they could use someone good with logistics. I said yes. For the first time in a long time, I said yes to something that wasn't defense. The final twist came quietly. One Tuesday morning, as the desert light spilled pale gold through the kitchen window, I opened the mailbox and found a plain white envelope with no return address. Inside was a check. $7,635.99. Memo line, reimbursement, no note, no explanation, no signature, just the check. I stared at it for a long time, thumb running across the ink like it could tell me what kind of apology hides in numbers. But it wasn't an apology. It was guilt, wrapped in paper. Hush money with a memo line. I slid it into the drawer beneath my Bible, tucked between emergency candles and the spare garage remote, and I left it there. I wasn't going to sell my peace. Weeks turned into months. Mornings found me on the porch again, mug of black coffee warming my hands, watching the road curve east toward the mountains. The sky would lighten, and sometimes I'd hear a car long before it appeared, a low hum rising on the asphalt. For a while, I'd tense every time headlights broke the bend. For half a second, I'd wonder if it was her, maybe here to apologize, maybe here to start another fight. But it never was. And slowly, I stopped wondering. One Sunday, I took a drive, past the city limits, out toward Pyramid Lake, where the road turns to gravel, and the sky opens like a secret you'd forgotten you knew. The truck rattled over dips and bumps, the radio catching bits of old country songs through the static. Dust rose behind me and vanished into the wide Nevada air. I parked near a ridge, climbed onto the hood, arms crossed, jacket collar tugged by the wind. The lake shimmered silver blue in the distance. The mountains loomed quiet and steady. The air was sharp with sage and rain from somewhere far off. For the first time in months, my chest felt light. There was nothing left to fix, nothing left to chase, only the road, and that was enough. If you're still listening to this story, if you made it this far, I want to thank you. Thank you for letting me be heard, for letting this story matter. If someone has ever tried to fold you up into silence, erase you one signature at a time, rewrite you until you're barely there, don't drink the coffee. Don't sign the paper. Don't give away your name. You are worth more than the lies they call love. And if you believe that, even a little, share this story. Because someone out there needs to remember who they are. And maybe today is the day they take the wheel back. If this story struck a chord, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comments.